Hello mortals, I am the BookTube Goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. Now I wanted to spotlight a channel called Mike's Book Reviews. Simple name, but he has gotten quite a big name for himself. Now I've noticed that he's done books that I've already read, so then sometimes I don't look at reviews of books that I've already read unless I'm very curious about it, so I don't watch his channel as much as I probably should. But he has gotten quite popular, so I wanted to do a deep dive into his channel, especially since I find his thumbnails quite interesting. By the way, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And please hit that notification bell because it really helps with that algorithm. So without further ado, let's take a look at his channel. Okay, so here is his channel. As you can see, he has over 50,000 subscribers. Very good for BookTube, Mike's Book Reviews, for all things horror, fantasy, and sci-fi literature. So you know why I like his taste. Anyway, looking at his recent uploads, 4.8K, 4.4, 3.3, 4.4, 6.3. So it's looking to be in the 4 to 5K range on average. Here's one that's 7.2K. Okay, so let's look at all his videos. And one thing I wanted to talk about with his thumbnails is, as you can see, some of his thumbnails have this orange sort of tinge to it. And maybe he doesn't do it as much as he used to, but if you go back, you can see a lot of these videos with a orange gel effect. And I think that's fascinating because when I see a thumbnail of one of his videos pop up on my recommended feed, I immediately recognize it just by the style, sort of that orange sheen with the yellow and orangey text. I mean, right away I know who that booktuber is. That is quite a good marketing feature for any YouTuber. Now let's go ahead and look at his oldest videos. And his first video was 5 years ago. Flashpoint reviews Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I wonder if he just started reviewing shows. The next one is Stephen King's It, my first book review. Well, I think we should look at that one. And it looks like that was 4 years ago, and then he jumps to 2 years ago. So he didn't do many book reviews or do many videos until 2 years ago when he did Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. And I think that's really how he got his name on BookTube, is because he did a whole series where he read the books for the first time, one after the other. And if you know Wheel of Time fans, that of course got them very excited. But going back to his very first review 4 years ago, it got over 3K views, 3.6K views. So that's pretty impressive just for a first book review. Let's go ahead and check it out. Hail to the geek!
What's up, geeks? I am Mike, and welcome to the debut episode of Hail to the Geek, where today it's going to be more like Hail to the King, because we will be talking about no one else but the legendary Stephen King, and more specifically, his iconic novel, It. Now, first, a little background. Stephen King is not only my favorite author of all time, but It is my favorite novel of his as well. And with a new film adaptation coming out this fall, interest in the title is rapidly increasing.
Yeah, my favorite is still The Stand. They did do, I think CBS did on Paramount Plus, a mini-series on The Stand. It's a really hard one to translate to film. But yeah, It was very good. I kind of prefer the original It mini-series back in the 90s. There's just something, maybe it's just nostalgia on my part. But if you've ever seen Salem's Lot, which was, I think, also a mini-series back in the 80s or 90s, That's kind of my favorite adaptation, at least with the exception of Carrie, which is, of course, a masterpiece of a film.
And for those who don't really know much about it, and that's a very small percentage of people these days, the very well-known fear of clowns that most of the population seems to share now, well, it's nothing new. And I don't know if that fear started with this book or the 1990 miniseries. All I know is I had Ronald McDonald at my 8-year-old birthday party, and I wasn't scared at all. But when I saw it at 11 years old, man, it scared me so goddamn much. I had to read the book basically as like personal therapy just to get over it. So this, of course, was the gateway for me to becoming the Stephen King fan I am today. After I finished it, I went through his entire library.
Now, I don't know what year John Wayne Gacy was, but I think fear of clowns, especially when there was a real-life clown mass murderer, I think that's a long-standing phobia.
In chronological order, finished everything right up before Needful Things hit theaters, I think in 91. Now, I don't know if it was a you never forget your first thing or something like that, but it was never topped as my favorite novel from him. But back to this film adaptation, though, even if you haven't read the novel or you haven't seen the 1990 miniseries, it's a safe bet you know who Pennywise, the dancing clown, is. I mean, I think he's a horror character every bit as iconic as Freddy or Jason or Michael Myers, any of those. So if you say, they all float down here, there's a good chance that someone knows what you're talking about as they kind of sidestep that sewer drain. More on that in a minute. But this new adaptation they're making that's being dubbed a remake and has all the horror leaders saying, stop remaking the classics, like they always do. But I mean, just stop. Just stop. I love the 1990 miniseries as much as anyone else, and I've watched it more times than I like to admit here. But this movie had a shoestring budget. All the fucked up stuff was cut out. The violence was gone. It's just Tim Curry was just so damn amazing as Pennywise. That's all people remember. Yeah. So they associate it with being a great movie. So I'm 100% in support of a decent budgeted, hard R, big screen adaptation of this novel. But since they made about maybe 5 movies out of his books that are worth a shit, I wasn't really holding my breath when it was announced. I mean, how can you replace Tim Curry, right? Well, I said the same thing about Heath Ledger when he was cast as Joker, and that turned out okay. So I went into this new trailer with open expectations, and I most have to say I was blown away. I mean, one thing you will never see me do on this show is trailer reactions. I think they are the fucking AIDS of the internet.
I do trailer reactions.
People in they do millions of hits. It's insane. But I immediately did watch a few for this just to see the reactions, and whilst people were scared shitless, it was overwhelmingly positive. You know, except for that old guard who think that a good horror movie has been made since 1988. I mean, I'll admit, horror struggled a lot the last 20 years. You know, bad writings. They throw a bunch of gore on it. I think that makes it scary. Hi, Evil Dead. But the interest for this, is through the roof, man. I mean, this apparently had the most views for...
Now, Evil Dead, I think that was... God, I remember that. That was like mid-'80s. But the sequel, Evil Dead 2, I think is actually a better movie. And you don't need to see Evil Dead 1 to see Evil Dead 2. Very Lovecraft inspired.
All time in 24 hours? That's insane. Okay, let's talk about a few more things from the trailer. It seems to be following the book pretty spot on outside of the moving it from the 50s to the 80s so that it's current day when they're adults. But we get our first glimpse of Pennywise in that famous storm drain scene that just about everybody knows what you're talking about. Let me tell you, man. I will walk a few yards today to avoid storm drains. I've been doing this since I was 11 goddamn years old. I'm going to keep doing it, damn it. And I have to say, I'm surprised they showed as much of Pennywise as they did. But I'm also glad we didn't hear him speak. Because, I mean, no matter what his voice sounds like, it's going to be compared to Tim Curry nonstop, with good reason.
True.
So I'm glad we don't have to hear that until the full trailer, most likely. I mean, it is a valid concern, though. I mean, if his voice is just terrible, it don't matter how terrifying he looks, man. It's just going to ruin it. And seeing just how faithful they want to be in this to the book, he's going to talk quite a lot. So there's going to be a bunch of jump scares. Without getting too spoilery, the basic plot of this, if you don't know, is there's being a pure evil. He disguises himself as a clown because it disarms children, or it did back then. He has the ability to change his form into anything that you're most scared of before it eats you. So this went on for hundreds of years. It picks up in about 27, 30-year increments. The 7 kids in it are called, they call themselves the loser clubs. They're kind of outcasts. They band together to fight Pennywise. They think they kill it, and then he comes back when they're approaching their 40s, starts killing kids, and they have to come back to Derry, Maine, because that's where everything happens in King Universe, and they have to fight it again. But for the movie, instead of interlacing things through memories like they do in the novel and the miniseries, it's going to be, this first one's going to be just him as kids, with the hopeful sequel, given how this does, giving us a second half when they have to fight him as an adult. But most people who haven't read it think this is a cash grab. I mean, but look at this thing. Look at this. This is a monster. There's more than enough for 2 movies here. They can make a fucking trilogy out of this. So I think this is the right way to go without maybe HBO or Netflix. But being 7 young kids in the 80s fighting a monster, as everyone quick to say, oh, they stole this from Stranger Things. And
No.
guys, the Duffer Brothers that made Stranger Things, they've gone on record numerous times saying how much they borrowed from it and other Stephen King novels. Stranger Things was essentially a love letter to everything these guys loved that was horror in the 80s. In fact, they wanted to make this movie before they moved on to Stranger Things. There's something to think about how it could turn out. So you're getting that vibe out of the trailer. There's a reason. And now you get to see the true inspiration for Stranger
Plus
Things.
the main actor and
So let's talk about that
Stranger
slideshow scene in
Things
the
is
trailer,
in
man.
it.
Holy balls, man. There are things in the book I wasn't sure how they translate the screen with it moving it to the 80s, but this was brilliant. In the novel, they're looking at a photo album, and the pictures start moving up to including it, like, actually coming out of the thing to scare the hell out of Scrooge. Like, coming out of the picture like this. Fucked up. But making the slides turn like a movie, and making Georgie's mother morph into Pennywise, man. Ooh, God, man. So I'm going to get into scene by scene here, but the next dozen of clips, though, are very famous scenes from the novel, and they just look incredible, man. I'd rather not go into spoiler mode here. I'll do that when it comes out, but I'm not going to elaborate on the leper or the bloody sink or the werewolf handle. I just know some fucked up shit is on the way. And that final scare in the trailer, though, God, man. That's something that wasn't on the page, but more of that, guys. I loved it. So am I excited? Yes, of course I am. I'm always excited when a King adaptation comes out. Am I going to nitpick it? I think anyone who reads a novel does when they see it before the movie, but is that going to let it ruin my fun? No, man. Shit, no, man. This looks to be giving me everything I want in an It adaptation in the year 2017. And unlike The Dark Tower, it seems like these guys actually read the book before they're making a movie. So what'd you guys think? Did it scare you? Have you read the book? Are you going to read it before the movie comes out? Did you like the trailer? Do you plan to see this in theaters? Or is it just too damn freaky for you? No. Let me know in the comments below or hit me up.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. Going back to The Dark Tower, that really should have been a mini-series. I mean, it's such a long story. There's no way you could capture even the first book in a 90-minute or 2-hour movie, in my opinion. Anyway, this is Mike's first, or one of his first videos. Going back to his video list, I wonder if he actually started videos before this. Again, he got some good numbers even before he started becoming a well-known booktuber 5 years ago. So I wonder if some videos are privated or removed. I don't know. But looking down, you can see Dragon Reborn. That's when his booktube channel, I believe, really started. And again, look at the sort of this orange cast and the font. It's really well branded for YouTube videos because, like I said, you could recognize them right away. Of course, he does a lot of Wheel of Time, Stephen King. I see Red Rising, of course, one of our favorites. Brent Weeks, I haven't talked about him, but he is a great fantasy author. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to his latest videos. By the way, on that first video, you can see, I kind of call him sort of, or think of him as sort of the fanboy of BookTube because he just has this really enthusiastic fan energy that's very engaging. You know, he's like that good friend of yours and you're both into some books or TV shows or whatever and you just want to get together and talk about it. There is that sort of intimate energy from him. I guess let's go ahead and look at his weekly update or his favorite Stephen King villains. That's kind of interesting. Or House of Chains. Oh yeah, I do recall I was watching some of his Wheel of Time videos and he was talking about doing Erickson's Malazan series. House of Chains, I've definitely read that one, but I think it's a book or two later that I gave up on the series. So I'm kind of curious of, I think The Toll. I forget, one of the Malazan books was just too dense for me and I gave up on it. It's one of the only fantasy series that has beaten me. Oh, and he did a video when he got 50K subs, so that's kind of neat. Let's just go ahead and do his weekly update. See what types of books he reads. So he calls it a weekly update. So I'm so used to monthly wrap-ups. So I guess he's going to tell us what he did through the week or what he's read. And of course, big booktubers have patrons.
You know what sucks about having two authors that you say cut to the front of the line every time they have a new release? Is when that happens right around the time that you start a big channel read along. But hey, let's talk about this week.
Life of a booktuber. Oh, Ursi, Crichton. So much. So he has Dune there. Star Wars. Nice intro.
Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. I know we just did one of these, it seems like about 4 or 5 days ago. Well, I wanted to get the schedule back and get these on Fridays because I like to have the weekly update drop on Fridays. So yeah, 2 weekly updates this week, guys. Hey, that's just what happens when you have a live stream.
He has Red Rum on his door.
Moved around a little bit. But hey, there's still plenty to talk about, and let's go ahead and do that. Like always, we're getting into what am I reading? Yes, guys, it is Stephen King release week. I've almost finished. I would have finished today. You see there's a little bit left. I would have finished today, but I left my Kindle at home. So I couldn't read while I was at work today. So I'm recording this a little later than usual because I was reading.
That's funny. On my last live stream, we were talking about this new book because I hadn't heard about it. Now, I prefer supernatural stories of Stephen King. And I think the last one I read was The Institute, which was okay. It was a totally fine book, but I'm kind of looking for a new horror author.
Reading that. And of course, it's into that final act now, and things are getting really, really interesting. As far as how I feel about it, I'm going to give that, I'm going to wait and talk about that in a full video on its own because it's Stephen King. I got to talk about it. And it's not going to be a multiverse episode, but we'll talk about that in a second. So after I finish that, am I going back to Midnight Tides? Yes, I am. I did read those first 3 chapters the first couple of days.
I think I read this one too, but it's kind of interesting that he's just gotten a little bit into it. I wonder how fast he's going through it because it's around this time that the books start, in my opinion, get difficult to continue reading.
Before that, but like I said, this is obviously channel priority. There's lots of people on the read along that are already on like chapter 9 and 10, so it's gonna be hard for me to catch up. But hey, it's not a race, right? It's not a race. But I'm already more invested in this book in the first 130, 140 pages than I was pretty much in all of House of Chains, and I've heard that was going to be the case because a lot of people told me even before I started that they think that this one and Bone Hunters will probably be my favorite in the series just based off of what they know about my likes and dislikes. So I'm excited to go back. Very, very interested in Troll Singar much more in this one because I wasn't really feeling that character in book number 4, but in book 5 now I'm already like, okay, well I want to know what happened.
Okay, the book I stopped reading was Toll Hounds. I believe that's what it was, and I either gave up on that book or just before, or the one before that. I might have bought like 2 books. I don't really remember, but it's been a long time since I read Malazan.
In the situation that he's in at the beginning of House of Chains. So I know that that's why everybody says that, hey, this series on a reread is going to mean the difference to you. I don't think that'll ever happen with me, but I can see why people say that. That's why I've also told people, hey, you remember what it was like the first time you read this? Did you have that? Did you have these same feelings? Yeah, so there we go, guys. That's it. And then, of course, new Joe Abercrombie. I'm going to be knocking this out before I continue with anything else after that. So, yes, the beginning of my...
Okay, I'm so out of it. I didn't know there was a new Joe Abercrombie. I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. Thanks, Mike.
August is really, really jam-packed. I got this, of course, like the day before we started the Malazan, read along, and then a new Stephen King book. But again, like I said, those are my 2 like cheat authors. They go straight to the top of the list anytime they have a new release. So we're going to bend some rules there. But again, like I said, Malazan is the channel priority, so I'm going to make sure I jump back on that before I continue
No offense,
and finish
if you like
Wisdom
it.
of Crowds. And that's going to lead us into what am I going to read? Yes, guys, August is a packed month. I know I joked last week that I was going to be reading 5 books at the same time. Well, not at the same time. Not at the same time. It's just I have 5 that are in progress at the same time.
I find that hard to do. I'm one of those readers that pretty much likes to read one book after the other, and I don't start a new book until I finish the last book. With the exception of audiobooks. I may do an audiobook and a physical book or ebook at the same time.
Same time, right?
Kudos to those of you who can do it.
Manga this week. Death Note's kind of on a pause, and Berserk is on a pause, so none of that. But like I said, King Cheat's the top, so he's going to take the first priority. I'll finish that tomorrow without a doubt. And then, of course, Midnight Tides will take priority, like I said, and Wizard of Crowds. Then I'll go back and finish the Dragon Republic. And I don't know if I'm going to get to all this before that Blood Meridian channel read-along. Not really a channel read-along. There's somebody on the Discord who is hosting a read-along for Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. And I foolishly said, hey, yeah, I could do that. And people were so excited. Someone, Lockie, he even bought me the book for it. So I'm definitely not going to back out on that one. And I still need to fit in Jurassic Park sometime this month, because that is the Crichton read-along book for this month. More on that in just a second. But I think that Burning God, that's the third Poppy workbook, is going to have to slide into September or something like that. I'm just not going to have enough time really to get to all these in August. I don't see it because I still got about half of book 2 of Poppy World left to finish.
Series.
And even if I really just hit my stride, Malazan books usually take 2.5, 3 weeks to get through for me, because I really like to take my time with those. So I don't imagine that's going to be the binge book that series has been lacking up to this point. But as for the Jurassic Park and the Michael Crichton stuff, that's the last one on the regular schedule. I've decided, because September has a theme and October has a theme, that's Sci-Fi September and Spooky Season for October, I'm going to take a couple months off of the Michael Crichton reread, and we're just going to pick right back up with Rising Sun starting in November. So yeah, we took a couple weeks off from Stephen King's Into the Multiverse, and we're going to take a couple months off for Crichton, just while I try to get everything kind of back on course, because I did kind of front load myself here, trying to get everything out of the way before we got to those 2 months with this special stuff. So if you guys want to go ahead and continue to read ahead on Michael Crichton, hey, I more than encourage that. If you want to wait for me, hey, cool, I would love to have you. So that's it. I always knew that the King and the Crichton stuff was going to be stuff I could delay a month or two if I got a little backed up. And it's going to happen from time to time. But like I said, I want to continue to make sure that Malazan stays the priority, since that is the marquee matchup for this channel for the next year plus. So no complaints here from me. I'm excited to go back, because I was liking where it was going. Just those pesky new releases from 2 of my favorite authors. It's always just going to cheat. But let's go ahead and talk about what happened this week on the channel, guys. Like I said, I did a weekly update on Sunday, because my weekly update is always going to be on Friday, but I was doing a live stream that day, and I thought, I could do my weekly update while I do that. But I know not everybody who likes the weekly updates is going to watch 3 hours to know what was going on. And honestly, guys, I just like doing the weekly updates. I think they're a lot of fun. If there's anything that's a reading vlog on this channel, this is the one. So I love doing weekly updates, and I get a lot of people tell me it's their favorite video of the week. So I want to make sure I did that, and then of course, doing it again on Friday, I just want to make sure that we got everything back on schedule.
Now, I hear what he's saying, because I don't do weekly updates, but I do sort of a get ready with me live stream when I talk about what's been going on that week. And it's fun to chit chat to some of my regular viewers. But it is fun just to reflect on your week. So I get why he likes doing weekly update videos.
So if you missed it on Sunday, we did do a post live stream weekly update, and then the next day I went ahead and did my July wrap up. But this one was a little different, because for months I've been talking about how the channel is stabilizing on its growth rate and things like that. Well, we had like a little shot upward, so I wanted to kind of talk about what happened there, and of course my favorite content and all those kinds of things. Talk about some of the new things I've been trying, some things that are working, like having discussions with other content creators. It's something I really enjoy, and I'm glad that you guys are liking that stuff. And I'm going to continue to do those as long as the feedback stays positive. There are some people who aren't crazy about the video podcast format, but a lot more do like it. And I'm glad, because I love doing that. Going to be talking with Jaime from the horror show soon, and of course Philip from Philip Chase. It's going to be a lot of fun here soon. I also did my standard review of House of Chains and got told that maybe I need to stick to kids fantasy, like Brandon Sanderson. So that was my favorite comment that I think I got this week. Another person told me that I'm having a lot of content, but not quality content, because I only did 3 book reviews last month. Because manga doesn't count. So, hey, I don't know what any of this had to do with House of Chains, but these are the things that I heard this week. But the comments on those are always funny, because I think it was the first Malazan book where I said it was probably a miss for me.
Now, that's kind of interesting that he's that his audience is looking for book reviews, because you've heard me say it before. Most booktubers don't get a lot of views for their book reviews, myself included. But there are some exceptions, and Mike's book reviews is one of them.
I thought I spoke, mixed to positive on it, but it's going to happen from time to time. Again, guys, positive comments on this channel, 99, negative comments 1, so it's always kind of rather amusing to me. But
you always get that.
Again, in the end, guys, if you don't like the content that I'm pushing out, I mean, I appreciate you guys watching, but if you're not digging it, man, hey, no hard feelings. Best wishes. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I'm not really trying to be that type. It's just I have a real life, guys. Like I said, this is something that I do for fun. It's never going to be a job for me. So if you don't feel like I'm pushing out enough of the content that you want, hey, yeah. I hear you, and I try to get to it. But with a real job and real life stuff, sometimes these things just don't happen, guys. So I will try to make sure I up the amount of reviews lately, because I did address that recently. Just real life got in the way for a while, but there are going to be lots of reviews coming up soon. So I'm listening. I just wish maybe you could be nicer about it. What else? 19 favorite Stephen King villains. This is one that I wanted to make for a long time, but I was going to do top 10, and I realized how hard that was. I said, I don't want to be like my guy Brian Lee Durfee and do my top 10 and be like, okay, now number 24 when I start with the top 10. But it was like, hey, 19 is a very significant number in the Stephen King multiverse. And if you don't know why, well, you need to read more. I can't really explain it to you, because I would be lying to you if I said it was crystal clear to me. But it's a Dark Tower. It's a Dark Tower thing, baby. You got to get there yourself. But talking about those villains, always a lot of fun, because the man has one hell of a rogues gallery to talk about. And I mean, I can name 10 right now that I had to cut off that list that I would have loved to have on there. So it's just, he's got quite a backlog of books there, guys. So I can fit every villain on a list like that. But those are the 19 that I think that some of those back half could probably rotate out and other ones rotate in. Like there was some really tough cuts, like Todd Bowden, like George Stark, people like that I really wish I could have put in there. But hey, we're trying to narrow it down to 19, not do like the top 50, So I think mostly pretty good feedback, except I accidentally said agoraphobia was the fear of clowns when I know that is not the fear of clowns. But hey.
The booktuber Fit to Be Read is doing his top 150 science fiction books, so. And people will watch it.
Sometimes you do these live, like I said, sometimes things slip, and it just happens sometimes. So there we go. Let's talk about a little bit of next week plans. I realized, guys, I did run out of time this week. I did not get to get that Death Note Part 1 review out, so I will be getting that out sometime early next week, because I want to talk about it before I move on to the second half of Death Note. So I've got lots to say. I've recorded a nice little intro for it. Got that ready to go. Now I just need to actually record the review. I am going to be talking about Billy Summers. Now, it's not going to be into the multiverse, like I said. What this is going to be is, if you watch my review my instant thoughts, or my instant reaction and thoughts, or whatever I called it, for later. I'm going to be doing something similar with this. It's going to be non-spoilers, and I'm just going to talk about basically my overall impressions of it. I'm going to save it for that video. I'm not going to kind of tip my hand here. But look, guys, I wouldn't be almost done with it in 3 days if it wasn't, up to par with most Stephen King stuff. I'll just say again, I'm amazed at his age. He's still writing stories that can grab me this well. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that. Instant thoughts.
What does age have to do with
it? Is what I called it last time. Then, hey, you want another review? How about 3 reviews next week, guys? If you count that Stephen King one. Someone will probably say that's not a review because I don't say it's a review. How about Fall of Hyperion? I've been talking about it for a while. How about I finally push out that Fall of Hyperion review? And now, be careful what you guys ask for, because if it's a book you love, you might not like that review. But hey, it's going to happen. I'm going to be honest about it. there's a lot there I liked. It just wasn't quite the book that I was looking for, and it's probably what has deterred me from continuing with the Hyperion Cantos for now. But we'll get into that then. Then I'm going to do my off the books, and this might be one that some people are going to kind of throw their hands up and be like, nobody cares about that. I feel like I've had enough people message me, enough people email me, enough people ask me in that live stream the other day. They want to know more about keto. So I'm going to tell them really, basically, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to tell you what worked for me and if it's right for you. Because there's so much misinformation out there. And I had a lot of people ask, look, guys, me and my wife lost a combined 160 pounds. And we've kept it off for 3 years now. And it's not just about the weight loss with that. A lot of people think,
I don't know that much about keto, but what interests me about it is when you go through ketosis, they say that your mental processes change. And that's always kind of intrigued me, but I don't really eat red meat, so I don't think I'm a good candidate for keto.
but now we're going to talk about a little TV and movie talk, and I'm going to begin with we're watching the Suicide Squad tonight. I'm very excited to watch that because I think I kind of said it in my last weekly update was that I'm a James Gunn fan. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Slither. I think he's just one of the last really creative minds left in Hollywood right now who's really not going to just stick to a formula. He has a method that he goes about stuff, and he puts so much heart into his movies that you wouldn't expect. And that's why I've always been a fan of his. So I love DC characters. I'm really expecting this to be, one of the better ones for sure. Say whichever you want about DC movies. I know that everybody feels like they got to be like either Team DC or Team Marvel. I don't do that shit. For me, I just want good movies.
Well, I'm the same way. I just want good movies. But it is true that DC hasn't been as successful as Marvel. Because there's one of them, Batman versus Robin. I think that was it. I kept falling asleep. I've been trying to watch that movie when it was on HBO, and I had HBO at the time. I tried watching that movie like 3 or 4 times, and every time I fell asleep.
Yeah, I do read more DC comics than I read Marvel comics, besides Spider-Man. I've read every Spider-Man and just about every X-Men episode or issue up until probably the mid-2000s, early 2000s. So, yeah, it's something that I'm obviously very interested in because I love some DC characters, especially these really obscure ones that he's really, really digging deep for. And I'm excited to watch it. And I can't wait to hear the soundtrack. It's a James Gunn movie. You know it's going to have a crazy good soundtrack, right? We did get a trailer today.
Maybe I'll check it out.
For Y: The Last Man. Now, this is a comic that I love, Brian K. Vaughan. This is what introduced me to Brian K. Vaughan.
I don't know this.
And that's the guy who does Saga. I love this comic to death. And I knew that they were adapting this for FX. I didn't have super high expectations. And I was like, I guess I just kind of forgot about it. Not only today did they give us a trailer for it finally, but they gave us a release. It's coming out in like a month. So how about that? They didn't give you a trailer and tell you, hey, it's coming a year from now, like another thing I'm going to talk about here in a minute. As far as if this can be good, I don't know. You guys know I don't like to kind of talk about this stuff too much. I feel like in today's climate, I don't know if this can be a faithful adaptation because there's so many people with an axe to grind right now, it seems like. When it comes to any form of entertainment, it's always got to be about the message and things like that. I don't know if this is the show that they should be making right now, but we'll see. I hope to be pleasantly surprised. There was a string there for a while where I felt like FX could not miss. From Nip Tuck all the way through like Justified, they were untouchable. Anything they made was an automatic watch for me. So I definitely want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think the only thing I still watch on there is Always Sunny, and I think it's on FXX.
I think it was FX did Legion, based on, I think it's Marvel. But that was a pretty intense series that I enjoyed.
Now, or whatever they call it. But yeah, I'm willing to give it a try. And like I said, I love the source material. I've read that entire comic twice, so I'll be very interested to see how they do it. And I hope it's more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I hope it's better than Preacher was, because Preacher adaptation, I was super hyped for that. And it came out and it was like, well, these are like the characters I know, but the story is completely unrecognizable. So I'm hoping this follows the comic just a little bit more. That would be really, really great. So it's a great comic. If you guys haven't read it for sure, I definitely recommend it. It is just so good. And we did get the first image and release date for the Lord of the Rings series on Prime Video, which is amazing because we got that September 2022. We got that a full year in advance. We got to know a release date for the Lord of the Rings show almost before we got to know the release date for Wheel of Time, which finally put out a poster that said November 2021. So it's so weird. And I'm not trying to do a Wheel of Time versus Lord of the Rings thing. At the moment, really, I have more faith in Wheel of Time than I do in Lord of the Rings, just because of all the buildup I've heard about some of the stuff they're doing around Lord of the Rings, where you've got like the Tolkien Society saying that it's not up to them to preserve Tolkien's legacy. And I'm like, what? Yeah, so it just seems like there's going to be a lot of controversy around that one that I definitely don't want to get into. So I think The Hobbit proved, and I talked about this in my live stream. I'm sorry if I'm regurgitating this. I talked in my live stream that I feel like The Hobbit proved that you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. I think Peter Jackson did the Lord of the Rings trilogy perfect, and I don't think we'll ever see that magic again. I don't think you can recreate that. The image looks really cool. You know, I'm all about Numenor. I want to know these things.
By the way, if you haven't seen the animated version of Hobbit from Baskin, I forget the animators' names, but I actually prefer that one because it really captures, I think, the atmosphere of The Hobbit much more than the epic atmosphere that Jackson put into his movie trilogy.
I think it'd be great, and it's going to be really great. Leading up to that, I'm going to do my full Tolkien retrospective in the months leading up to that release. And so that's something I've been wanting to do for a while. I've never read the Christopher Tolkien stuff that he completed outside Silmarillion, so I'm really excited to finally do Unfinished Tales and all that stuff, Children of Hurin. I'm excited to do all these things and the build up to it. I don't have super high hopes for the show, but I would love to be proven wrong because, I mean, that's my favorite fantasy universe of all time. So, of course, I would love for it to be really, really great. But I'm trying not to get excited just based off of a picture, but it does look really, really cool. So I think, if anything, the show is going to be a visual feast. I mean, they have to, as much money as they're sinking into it. And I just hope if they want this to be a major success, I hope a lot of the rumors we hear about it are just not true. And, I mean, it's Lord of the Rings, man. It's something that you need to really take seriously, because I feel like they are taking it more seriously than they're taking Wheel of Time, which is just wild to me. But I'm just saying that just off of how they're marketing it, because Wheel of Time, I mean, we're supposed to get Wheel of Time in like less than 3 months, and we still haven't even got a teaser trailer. I just think that's nuts. But I don't know, maybe they're doing the Y the Last Man thing. Maybe they're going to do us a trailer and they'll be like, hey, yeah, it comes out in 3 weeks. I don't know. We'll see. But guys, that was my week. How was your week? Drop in the comments and let me know what you're reading. Let me know what you're playing.
So this is Mike's book reviews. His tastes in literature, with the exception of Malazan, but I did get pretty far into Malazan before I gave up on it. But his taste in science fiction, horror, and fantasy pretty much aligns with mine. That's why I've really been drawn to his channels, but he does go over things that oftentimes I've already read, so I don't really feel compelled to watch all his videos. I love how his thumbnails are branded. His whole channel seems to be very well branded. And again, he has that fanboy personality where it's just like you feel like, oh, I just want to sit down with him and talk about Stephen King or Wheel of Time or whatever. And I also appreciate that he's not your typical booktuber, which is oftentimes a woman in her 20s or 30s reading heavily in young adult. Nothing wrong with that at all if that's what you're into, but when you see a man in his 40s making it on BookTube, that's pretty impressive given the demographics of a lot of booktubers. And he obviously has a very fanatic fan base. So if you're into fantasy, science fiction, or horror, give Mike's book reviews a shot. Let me know in the comments what other booktubers you would like me to spotlight. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.